Let's lunch and learn. I'm ready for this one. Hyperlocal listing presentations. It's gonna be a fun one, and I hope you're ready to take note. If you're wondering, how are we keeping up? Let me see if I can make it a little bit bigger. I'll show you this schedule here in a second. But hello, everyone. 12:01. So let's get started on today's Lunch and Learn topic. And for those of you that are brand new, my goal for Lunch and Learn is always to provide value. And the way we do that is we always ask for feedback. So for those of you that are brand new, it's a good idea to text the word review to 844-950-3580. And you just get a link back. Just let it be lying there. One of the things we do for all of our honest reviews is we do send out a thank you. So thanks for taking the time. Thanks for letting us know how we're doing on these free Lunch and Learn classes. They have become a staple of the Hyperlocal Agent. They've become really, really fun. So we are saying thank you for every single person that leaves us an honest review with what you see here. We call these the Business Builder boxes, a physical box shipped directly to your doorstep simply because you're providing us with feedback. And that is just a glimpse of what's inside. So many of you have already reviewed these Lunch and Learn classes, which we host 100% free. So want to keep it this way, and we want to help more agents. So invite a friend next time, make it part of your schedule. That would be absolutely amazing that we get to hang out with you every single Monday. And that little box here has made its way across the country. So again, just a nice little way to say thank you. We do put a postcard template in it. We do put note cards in there, some surprise and delight things. And that is just because we do think it takes time for you to leave a review, even if it's just a sentence or two. And we want to say thank you. So that said and out of the way, welcome to the Hyperlocal Listing presentation, Lunch and Learn. And we're going to go deep into what I truly wish I had when I went on my first listing appointment. How many of you guys remember your first listing appointment? And who has never been on a listing appointment? You're literally in the perfect spot because, man, that first listing appointment was certainly something to remember. Now, quick disclaimer, these Lunch and Learns are for educational and informational purposes only. It has been compiled and derived from sources believed to be reliable, mainly out of my own real estate business. I am still an active agent, licensed and practicing, ranking in the top 2% for my fairly large brokerage. So in case you're wondering where's all of this coming from, it's coming from the trenches. Makes a difference, doesn't it, when things come from the trenches? Now, every time I go on a listing appointment, my goal is obviously to get the listing signed. Doesn't work all the time because people sometimes have to consider other things. But at the end of the day, I go on listing appointments to sign listings, right? And very similar, I always approach these Lunch and Learns with a similar goal. I host these Lunch and Learns not just for my own sake, but oftentimes for the sake of you guys, the attendees. Why? Because when you are attending anything in life, you need to have a next step, a next plan. What are we doing, right? So we have over the months identified really 3 ways that we find attendees are going to get more education, learn better, and implement faster, which I'm going to show with you right now. So the 3 paths we have identified is our lifetime learner. I personally identify heavily with you guys that are lifetime learners. The lifetime learner is the one that is like, hey, cool, I need to attend another class and I want to watch another training, right? You want to learn and you want to pick up these golden nuggets. That's me. I am obsessed with learning more. The book reader, for those of you that love to pick somebody's brain, if that somebody has a book, well, let's just say pick up the book. Why? Because people typically do not publish crappy books. They put everything they know in there, and it's a great way to pick their brain on your own time, okay? And then the action taker, this is where the rubber meets the road, as they say, right? It's the people that have done all the classes, they've done all the reading, and they're just saying something is missing. And what's missing is the action. So That's the Lifetime Learner Pass. You find all of these buttons below, so you can look further below this video later on. It's the hyperlocalagent.com/class. So just in case you're coming from the email, you might have a different page. But you want to go over to our website where the Lunch and Learns are being streamed on. And all of these buttons are then below. So the Class Pass, again, my personal favorite. We have to update this one. We're actually coming up on close to 30 classes in there. So consider it your Netflix version for real estate agents interested in geographic farming and direct mail marketing. Lots of classes that are actionable, just like the one you're going through today. And that's our Class Pass. It is not a membership. It is 30-day access only. So for those of you saying, hey, I didn't have time, use it or lose it. It's our way of making sure you are taking action. So the Class Pass, then we get the book. This is where I highly recommend you go to mailermombook.com to get it. We already paid for the book. All you got to cover is shipping. If you prefer Amazon, we have it on Amazon, I think for like $15. And then the Action Taker, that is the bootcamp. The bootcamp has come to a completely new level this year. So I'm really excited to start seeing it take off the way it has taken off. It's a 5-day challenge, a micro challenge, in which we take attendees through the exact steps they have to take to get a postcard out the door. So for those of you that know me, I talk about hyperlocal areas a lot. I talk a lot about postcards because that's how I built my business. And it's the next level lead gen things I think can really help agents leverage a system, leverage their time, and become also known in a hyperlocal market. And since we're talking about hyper-local listing presentations, I assume most all of you guys have some sort of connection with geographic farming. So that's the mailerbootcamp.com. We just kicked off one today, but if you are watching the replay, again, next one is kicking off on Monday. So the Mailer Bootcamp, talked a little bit about that one. Now, if you're a workbook person, I would say grab a workbook. We do cover a lot, especially today. I think there's a lot of notes you want to take. And this one is the hyperlocalagent.com/workbook. We use it for all of our Lunch and Learns. There's a lot of information coming at you. And this one here is a no opt-in required, just straight up Google document that you get on a download. Okay. So have a look at this one. Most of the people that we have Lunch and Learns with do come and then just take notes in it. All right. Chat's being quiet, so if you're on the live, feel free. The chat does work when you're live. If you're catching the replay later, there will not be a chat icon, but if you are seeing this right now, there is upper right, I believe. All right. The more interaction I had, the easier it's going to be to tailor this, but let's start with story time. Do you remember your first listing appointment? And if so, feel free to put your little story in the chat, because I personally remember mine. And it was not great. It was pretty awful. And when I say awful, it was just me having a company listing package printed. And the first thing that I did was I started going through it page by page by page. And I was reading things off, right? And I'm like, my my brokerage was founded, and this is the two guys that founded it. It was so bad. And we're really standing for integrity and all of this good stuff, right? And I just went through it step by step by step. And it was this moment when you're just giving a really bad presentation and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do something about this. Like, I cannot do this bad of a job again. Needless to say, I didn't get the listing. And what really started this bad experience was me to say, I will never want to be in such an awkward position sitting across from an opportunity. Now, listing presentations are generally not being taught in most cases the way they should be. I'll be just really honest, right? Every brokerage typically has some sort of something in place. And I highly encourage you to obviously look at what is in place at your brokerage. But the amount of time and effort it takes for you to perfect your own listing presentation is something that I really wanted to highlight in this Lunch and Learn, because you can learn so much from other people, And some of you are like, okay, but why are we sharing this? It's because you're still going to have to put your own spin on it. You still have your own personality. You still have you put your you in it, right? Without you, it's not going to work. You have to make it yours. You have to be comfortable with it. And that is why there is literally zero reservations for me to share what we're doing and what is working, what we've tried, and what is not working. So lots of them are frameworks. And that's what I'm going to give you today. I also want to give you another story of a listing appointment that went really, really different. And that's the one that my very first manager, broker in charge, however you call it, right, was telling me when I talked about my listing appointment experience. And to just keep it brief and short, his was, well, first up, done in the, 70s or 80s, like, right, old school broker. And he had a mentor that told him, when you pull up, the first thing you do is you grab your for sale sign, you walk to their front yard, you slam your sign in the ground. This is when you were still doing signs yourself, right? You put your sign in the ground, you walk up to the front door, and then you just knock and be like, well, I got the sign in the yard and I'm ready to sign. Well, turns out that my first manager took this advice literal, like, this is exactly what he did, right? He took a sign out of the trunk. He stuck it in the yard. He walked up to the front door and said, well, I got my sign in the yard. Let's get some paperwork done. And I was just floored at the amount of confidence that personally I know I did not bring to the table on listing appointment number 1. So you tell me, were you team confidence on your first listing appointment, or were you team awkward on your first listing appointment? Either way, I think I came a long way from my progression. Now I walk into listing appointments. I still do not slam a sign in the front yard just because this is done by another service, but it's just not something that's a little presumptuous on my end. Don't think that's something I want to do. But where are you at? Team confidence, right? Team C, team A, team awkward, right? It's a rite of passage. I think at the end of the day, we can agree that listing appointment number 1 is a rite of passage. And then there's the paperwork. Oh, and then there's the paperwork, right? Especially right now. And then there's more paperwork. So that was a little bit of a kickoff. So first, let's talk a little bit about what we call APE, right? You've heard the talk that listings are the name of the game, and that generally is true because you can service 3 times as many listings as you can buyers. Now, what do listing agents bring to the table? At the end of the day, APE, right? Attention, power, and energy. For those of you that are, just like me, in a very cold market, meaning you are not necessarily knowing the person that you are sitting across from, you have to really start paying attention, right? Like I'm noticing it right now. How are you showing up? Right now, I'm a little hunched. So, it's like straighten up, have this magic, wonderful string, straighten up. And it's like, all right, let's pay attention. Okay. And the attention part really goes a lot further than paying attention to your own body posture. And you're like, okay, I came here for a listing presentation and now I'm talking about body posture. Yes, we are going to cover a wide variety. And if you take one nugget away from today, call it a win. So again, your body posture, how you're coming to the door is a big one. Did you know that people actually trust people when they see their hands? Yes, these little thingies right here, right? If people can see your hands, you have a deeper trust connection with them. So keep that in mind. So instead of just, hiding them away in your pocket, think about things that you can, are you holding something? Are they visible? Hands are something you can pay attention to. And then obviously we're going to talk about paying attention as you navigate through the house. Okay. We have a fantastic lunch and learn we did on personality profiling. And the personality profiling that we have done in a way that is different than most any other personality profiling. And here's the thing, I don't want to reach over into the other class too much, but one of the things that I think you really have to pay attention to is who's going to come and greet you. right? So example, if you have somebody that has like rings on every single finger, right? Really bedazzled, right? And they're like, they have their earrings and they have their necklaces and they have all of these things. These people like to party, okay? These people are not about the numbers. So don't be spewing a lot of numbers at them of like turnover rate and, market time and this. They want to feel good. Like they just want to be there and in the moment. And you're like, you're going to make their house look like a rock star. Like everybody wants to come and see it, right? They want to hear that. So when you pay attention, you have to pay attention to yourself. You have to pay attention to who you're meeting, right? Another example, if you meet, like right now, great example. If you meet me, you will typically find me in something black, right? It's like I normally have something black that I'm wearing just because it's easy. Turns out, if you wear colors such as that, you have a fairly analytical mind. Like, I don't know how many of you guys like the color black in your wardrobe. That's me. But you're more on an analytical number-based level, okay? There are so many different signs that you can look at and pay attention to as you are not even saying a word about the listing presentation, listing appointment so far. Okay, make sense? So really start paying attention. And for those of you guys inside my ClassPass or inside GeoCentral, we have that class, so feel free to go through it if you want to dive deeper. But next up, the power play, right? The power and the energy is really how you show up, how your voice starts resonating with people, your energy level. And I've just seen this again this past weekend. Your energy level and your level of excitement needs to be there, right? You can't just, like, I've had conversations with agents across the country, especially during COVID. And they were just being very realistic with their buyers who came with a home to sell contingency and a little budget and said the chances of you getting a house are really, really slim. I need you to understand that. And it's not that they were wrong. If you were licensed during that time frame, you probably would agree with them that it's likely a waste of time for some of these brand new listings that just got listed to even go look at them because they wouldn't have gotten them. And it sounds terrible, but that was just the market we were in. Now, a very realistic answer to your current, situation as a buyer does not feel on an energy level very good, right? So again, keep in mind what you're portraying to people as we're trying to be realistic, but at the same time, your energy that you're bringing in there can change the entire outcome, right? I mean, I've been to listing appointments where I just got some really crummy news before, and or I just saw a listing went up with a competitor, right? And I'm like, oh no. So you have to snap yourself out of it all of a sudden, and you're like, let's get that energy. How do you do that? Find a good song. Honestly, if you're just finding a good song while you drive to the listing appointment, pump yourself up. Give yourself a pep talk, right? Call your best friend and say, I got all these crazy things happening in my head. I'm going on a listing appointment. I need you to make me feel like I am like invincible, right? I mean, at the end of the day, what are friends for? So you have all of these little things that you can really start honing in on. And that is before you've even sat down with anybody there, right? That is just the smile on your face when you walk up. Oh my gosh, hi, how are you? Right? There is so much good stuff. Debbie, you can check out the ClassPass for the personality type detection. And then there's also some really good books that you can check out. Why They Buy, Stop Squatting with Your Spurs On. That one is from Angie Turner. She's awesome. Highly recommend that book. So there's just so many different little books. Again, how do you pick somebody's brain, right? Get a book. The class obviously is comprised of all of these things, but yeah. All right. So what do listing agents bring to the table at the end of the day? The ones that are actually listing houses? APE, attention, power, and energy. All right, let's move on because there is a whole lot more. So confidence, right? That's a big one. Confidence. When you are certain about the price because you know the neighborhood stats inside out, you can handle listing appointments better. And this is really why we're talking about hyper local listing appointments. I can walk into a house and tell you spot on what the listing price should be, simply because I know the models, I know the market, I know the style, I know the updates. And actually, I was just touring properties this morning to know exactly why is a property not selling and why should I not use it as a comp. I can tell you, I walked into one this morning and I don't know what that smell was, but I think something died in there. Okay. So why is it not selling? What's wrong with it? It looks so beautiful. Again, insight knowledge helps you show people that you know, right? And that happens on a hyper-local market level so much faster. But confidence is not everything. There are a couple other things. It is, however, a really big one why I think it helps you to concentrate in one hyper-local area. So let's break down our listing presentation. Somehow, this is something that nobody really talked about. And I'll be honest, I don't know where I stumbled upon that, but it was during the, it was the day after my very first, very bad listing presentation that I said, I need to sit down and I need to attend a class about listing presentations because I need to create my own so I don't have to look this awkward again. And I started hunting down things that I personally really, really liked. And I started pulling pieces in, and kind of like assembling my listing presentation, like one of these, what do you call it? Hostage letters, like paste the letter here, paste the letter there, paste the letter there, and it makes a letter. It was awkward to start like this. And then Canva came along and I made it all pretty and life was good again. But this is where I started, right? I attended a class like this and then I started using Google, and then now you have ChatGPT and you start pulling pieces together. And I don't know if I would use ChatGPT necessarily, just because I think some real agents going on real listing appointments will give you actually some real actionable stuff. But again, why not try it? I haven't. But one of the things I stumbled upon, which made so much sense to me, was that the listing appointment really has two components. Any guesses? What are the two components we're going to talk about? Yes, interactive part of the class. If you are on the live, I do make you work for the answers. Right? When I sit down, most sellers have one question. How much can I get for my house? Meanwhile, here's me over here and be like, we'll get there. Hold on a second. So the two parts that I am talking about first and foremost, one, marketing. I do not care what you say about the market. Marketing matters. 100% marketing matters. Think about, and that's the analogy that I think I sometimes give, think about a very, very dirty $1 bill, okay? And then a very clean $1 bill. The value, we can argue, is what? $1. It's the same. If I offer you these $2 bills, you will, by instinct, reach for the cleaner one. House selections is no different, okay? The buyer will reach for the cleaner bill, the cleaner house, just like you would reach for the cleaner bill yourself. And that's really, at the end of the day, what marketing is designed to do. Now, when I have buyers, I try to explain to them, we want to look sometimes for the bad pictures on purpose, because that is oftentimes a forgotten listing, right? But when you are sitting across from the seller, your goal is to have them understand that this clean dollar bill is what people will be buying. And how do we get that clean dollar bill? With marketing and preparation, right? Marketing and preparation are the two components on the marketing aspect we have to cover first and foremost, because the price will not, the price will be influenced based on what we do in the marketing department. So if you have a seller that is very, very pushy, saying, you know what, I just need a price. I just need a price. And I'm like, I understand you just want a price. And I have a price for you. However, that price is based on what we're going to do first and foremost here. Is it okay if we're going to go through this first? Because at the end of the day, the price itself is not the only thing valuing your property. Is it okay if I show you what I mean by that? Well, I guess so, right? I know. Once we discuss the marketing, we'll switch into the pricing. Okay, so there's your two components. So when you sit down, we're not going to start with, hey, here's the comps, here's how we're going to do it. We're going to start with, awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit about everything that's happening, and then we'll talk about price as well. So the other thing I want to explain here is some that most of you probably know, but some of you will have questions on, which is the difference between a one-step listing appointment and a two-step listing appointment. Every now and then I encounter a seller that says, well, now that you've seen my house, feel free to, run your prices and then just give me a call with the pricing. And I'm like, well, I already got a price for your house. And they're like, you do? And I'm like, well, if you look at as many houses in the neighborhood and stay up to date on the market, every fantastic expert agent should be giving you a price right here, right then. So for those of you that are saying, okay, I always do a two-step, I just gave you the reason I make myself look like a better expert by doing a one-step. A one-step listing appointment, we go over marketing and pricing during the same appointment. A two-step listing appointment, we'll go over marketing and then schedule a follow-up for the pricing. Okay, everybody's good on those two definitions? Now, for those of you in a custom market, okay, there's nothing wrong with a two-step listing appointment. However, personally, I'm in a cookie cutter market. Every fifth property is the same, okay? It is dependent on your market, what listing appointment type makes sense for you. So for those of you selling, custom built homes in Aspen, Colorado, I probably will work with a two-step listing appointment because at the end of the day, if it's a custom build, what do I know what's in it, right? So just keep that in mind, that it is market dependent based on where you are located and what your market is like. But if you are in a market where you have enough data to make it a one-step, make it a one-step if you can. All right. It doesn't seem like we got any questions on that one, so I'm going to move on then. Awesome. Now, which one is better? One-step or two-step? I should have a little poll button. I don't think I have a poll button. Let's see. No poll button. Too bad. One-step or two-step? It depends. Oh, there's a good comment. Then got her pricing strategy advisor designation. So again, something that she can use. And the instructor stated that pricing is a client level service and we shouldn't give a price unless they sign a listing agreement with us. So let's put this into practice. How many of your clients are going to sign a listing agreement with a blank price in it? You're going to have to give them something. It is impossible to get somebody to agree to list with you without a pricing suggestion. I will not sign a listing agreement without knowing what we agreed on pricing. Now, we're going to get to the whole pricing part in a minute as well, and we're going to talk about, the ins and outs and how we do some of that, because it's not about setting a price. You are not the one setting the price, I should say. I should clarify, right? He said he tells them they can list, and then if they don't like it, he'll tear up the agreement. All right, well, there you go. It's not worth the paper it's written on, I guess. Usually do a two-step to build rapport, sometimes one step, sometimes no step. The no step ones are my favorite ones. All right, well, at the end of the day, right, it's personal preference. I don't think there is one that's better or that's worse. you're going to have to find a flow that you find working for you best. So you saw Janice in the comments said, I like to build rapport. I want to be back for another time. I want more face-to-face time, right? And that's the part that I think you can really start testing out what works as well. I've had houses where I'm like, you've done so much custom work. I'm normally able to give you a price, like most, 90% of listings appointments I go to, I can typically nail down a price category. Is it okay if I get back to you and do a little bit more research? The tax records weren't accurate. You've done so much other work here, right? Is that okay? Normally not how it goes, but your house is really special. Again, remind your energy, right? Remind your posture. Don't lose on your confidence. Very interesting. Yes. So let's talk about, first up, of what not to do, since the what to do, right, is really preference in many levels, but what not to do. I really don't think it is in your best interest if you were to give the seller the pricing right away, right? They will not listen. All they have stuck in their head is this number that you gave them, and they are tuning out. So what do we not do? We do not give the seller what they want. I know, terrible, right? That's why they called us in. We're going to have to go through a little bit of a journey of education. So since we can't start with pricing, we must start with marketing, right? And that is really where I started to structure my listing presentation. How many of you have your very own listing presentation? Because you may just want to look at it and start tweaking it. My listing presentation, to this day, I still tweak every so often. If I find something, and I'm going to actually show you the latest update we've done, I always tweak it, right? There's always something else, always a little bit of a different try on it. So first things first, when you walk in, right, what do? Take a tour of the home. I have a lot of sellers that want to kind of just get me to the table right away. And I'm like, awesome. Do you mind if I can get a tour of your property? Ask them to have you tour the home. I know we want to sit down. Yes, we want to talk, but you got to see the product, right? You got to see the product. It's the same that you go into a jewelry store and look at the display case. You got to see the product, right? And then after the tour, right, sometimes we get that question, can I get you something to drink? Just say yes. And you might say, you know what? No, I'm good. Just say yes. And this one came about because I was listening to one of our top producing agents in the Chicagoland area. And what he said about this one was very interesting. If you say yes to something simple as water, it humanizes you. Yes, it humanizes you. If you are saying yes to a glass of water, right? This is now like, oh, like they have needs, just like I have needs, right? It's such an interesting psychological fact, I think, that you can really start, because by default, what do we say? No, I'm good. No inconvenience. It's okay. I'm here to serve you. You're not here to serve me, right? Say yes to that water next time. Just give it a try. Okay? And then the first thing we do once we sit down, my job was to remove pricing from the equation. Because at the end of the day, a seller wants to know, what's my house worth? They want to have that answered, right? Now, my job was, how can I remove pricing from the equation? Because I needed them to pay attention. And if all they had on their mind was, how much can I get for my house? How much is my house worth? I wonder what number she's going to give me. The last agent gave me this. I wonder how much this one is going to give me. If that's all they're thinking about, right? Why not? Why not remove it? Let's see, we're going back to the water. I learned you should ask for water because that puts you in the position of asking for the listing and getting them to do something for you. See, very similar mentality. Ask for the water. Typically, we have it offered. I feel like a lot of times, can I get you anything, right? So, but there's another one. I don't like asking for things. Maybe that's my problem. Maybe I should try that. See? And I'm supposed to teach class, and yet here's me learning. That's how you know you actually found a good class, right? It's always good to have a good classroom. So let's talk about removing pricing. How do we remove pricing from the equation, right? I know everybody is thinking, okay, this is kind of why you're there. How can you remove it? And I'm going to share with you one of the things that I decided to put in place first and foremost when I start any listing presentation. Fair? All right. Yes, a dog with a superhero cape. We're going to talk about that cape, okay? It's really time for you to become the superhero of the story. When you remove pricing from the equation, people are actually starting to pay attention. They are starting to realize that what we do is not a sign in the ground. Once they have an understanding that maybe their cousin that just gave them a price and they're just asking you to give them a second opinion, which they've already decided they're going to hire their cousin, but their friend said, you should get a second opinion because he does a deal and a half a year. Why don't you call somebody that is doing a lot of business to just get a second opinion? You can still list with your cousin because you get a great deal, but why not just get a second opinion, right? So now you are coming in there, and the first thing they want to know is like, well, what do you think we should list it at? It's your turn now to make sure that you know how this conversation will go. You need to guide the entire conversation. So I like acronyms just because they really help you stay on track. And I'm like, all right, we're going to cover really 4 things as we go through it. And I just want to make sure we go through them. This way you understand what is going to be covered. Okay. So first up, we're going to cover condition. Obviously, I walked through the house already, right? I've had a look at this. You have done a great job. You have done this. You have done this. You. Okay. You're being extremely straightforward on condition. Who is responsible for condition, right? You, meaning the seller, right? You are responsible for the condition of your property. If you have not maintained your property for the last 30 years and now you want top dollar, well, I'm going to be the bearer of bad news, but not because of me, because of you. And we're going to say it in a nice way, right? So first up, condition. Next up, access. How easily can the property be shown? Who is responsible for access? Yes, interactive part in the comments. Who is responsible for access? Whose choice is access? 100% the seller, right? This is not your house. This is not on you. If I have a seller saying, you know what, we really can only show it between 1 to 2 on a Thursday because little Johnny has nap time, I'm homeschooling, then we come home, then we have dinner, then we have early bedtime, here's like an hour window. That's a problem. And if our sellers are not realizing that their constraints, like, oh, I don't want any showings before 10, or I don't want any showings after 7, or I only want showings on weekends. If we are restricting access, and now we're trying to have multiple adults figure out their, life in general, well, it might be hard for them to find a time. I'm currently still, for the last 3 days, trying to get into a tenant-occupied property. It's not that the agent has been great to communicate, right? But at the end of the day, I only have so many hours. I am forced to plan 24 hours in advance, at least. And all of these little things are adding up for me to make it a little difficult, right? There's somebody in the comments, I'm dealing with this now, right? My client's bought a foreclosure from me 12 years ago in an exclusive community and hasn't done one single thing. Oh, okay, we're still talking about the condition. Yes. But again, condition isn't on you, right? And neither is the access. Now, when I have clients say, you know what, we're really not comfortable with anybody in our house. Can you just be there for us? Of course, that's fine. However, you need to keep in mind access. okay? Because now I have to figure out my schedule, I have to figure out the buyer agent schedule, and I gotta have to figure out the buyer schedule. And in addition, I gotta make sure it fits your schedule, okay? It's kind of like grown-up play dates gone wrong. We all know how this goes, right? We all have good intentions and then everybody's always busy. So keeping that in mind for access, because at the end of the day, it's not your decision, okay? The more access we can have to a property, the easier it typically sells. And this will also come in handy when you have a seller who keeps declining your showing. Do you remember when we sat down and I said, what will it take to sell the house, right? Condition, access. You've turned down so far 10 showings, and we're really trying to make sure this works, but maybe we have to revisit the access that we had put in place to just find something that's a little bit better. How do you feel about adding at least 2 open houses in every weekend? You know the open house schedule, and we can plan ahead, and we can ask the buyer agents to feel free to even just send their buyers, okay? You need to take control of the narrative. All right, let's move on. We got lots to cover still. Price. All right, who's responsible for price? Who is responsible for price? Yes, grown-up play dates. It's bad. Shauna says seller. Right? At the end of the day, we're not the ones setting the price. And that, again, is all about setting expectations. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're going to talk about pricing. At the end of the day, you're going to be in charge of picking the price, right? If you want to list your house, which is worth, you in your head know it's worth, let's say, $400,000. If you want to list your house, and I always pick like a crazy number, right? If you want to list your house at about $1 million, obviously I want you to get $1 million, but you and I both know that this is likely not going to happen. So I will probably not, be able to list your property, but we're going to talk a little bit about pricing. At the end of the day, and this is where we're removing pricing, you are in charge. During the time doing real estate, is it worth it for you to argue about $10,000 as it relates to pricing? It's not worth it, right? Especially given market conditions. But at the end of the day, when you look at $10,000 as a single person, not a real estate agent, but as a real person, that's a lot of money, right? And at the end of the day, the seller is in charge of that. You get to decide what you want to do. Do you want to take the listing or not? And I have walked away from listings. I said, you know what? Your pricing and my pricing is so out of alignment right now. I know I can be the best agent for you, but I can't promise you a unicorn. And for those reasons, I just can't list the property. Okay? Now, that also comes along as your business grows, as your hyperlocal influence grows, right? There's one right now inside one of my farms that is roughly about double of what it should be, right? It's also your reputation. So over-promising can ruin your hyperlocal reputation, right? It's hard to market a property that is way overpriced. Now, there's also ways around it. It's a simple matter of, you know what? Here's the deal. We're going to assign 2 things. We're going to assign the price that you want, and we're going to assign the price reduction to what I want. If you're willing to do that, I'm willing to list it, and we'll see what happens. Right? Appease them. Make them happy. If that is something you want to do. You don't have to, because you're still going to be expected to do a certain amount of marketing, but I would never go based on, you know what, we're going to do it your way, and then in 2 weeks we'll discuss it, because they probably don't want to discuss it. At which point I am out marketing dollars, I'm out time, I'm out effort, and in 2 weeks they're going to be like, you know what, no, we're just going to keep trying a little longer. It's like, that wasn't the deal, right? So just get it signed. Done. All right. And then we'll talk about exposure. Now, who is responsible for exposure? Condition, access, price, and exposure. Exposure, that's me. That is what you're hiring me for, and that is why I'm sitting here for, right? And that's the part that once you make that seller understand, oh, I'm actually just interviewing you based on that, you have a clear path to start talking about marketing. Because the seller now realizes that at the end of the day, that is what I should pay attention to. Okay? So we took the narrative and we brought it all over to where their attention should be shifting to. How can we get the most eyeballs on your property? Because it's not the fact that we don't have the internet, we don't have the MLS, right? That is not the issue. The issue is how can we stay or get people focused on your listing, keep them focused on your listing, and how can we negotiate, right? That's a skill set to make sure that you get the best possible outcome. And then we can go on and move from there. Personally, I do think when you label your style for listing appointments or listing presentations, it's easier to craft an entire presentation, okay? Every single lunch and learn I do, I start with the title. The title is what pulls my entire presentation. And I think a listing presentation is the same. So name your style. What is your listing presentation style? What are you there for? Is your job to make listing your home easy? Is it to make listing your home fun, right? Is it to get the most amount of money possible? Is exposing your home to the most amount of buyers your style, right? Is it white glove service from start to finish? Give your presentation a style name. Name it, label it, give it a headline, okay? It just becomes a whole lot easier to say, hey, here's what I'm sitting here for. This is really my main objective for you to accomplish. Okay, so give it a name. I think that was the number one thing I did that really helped me bring everything together to make it work. I also think that all of you guys are with different brokerages, right? And all of these companies provide their agents a listing presentation. I do think that you should just have a quick look at these. I do think they have a great outline for you to base what you're trying to develop onto. Call it a skeleton structure, right? My skeleton structure for my first brokerage, and I looked at it and I'm like, I started taking out the bullet points, right? What are we talking about? It was talking about company history. It was talking about company market share. It was talking about company values. It was talking about company marketing plan. It was talking about company tools, right? What are the tools we have in place? And I started looking at that skeleton structure and I started going through and be like, okay, how can I make this sound like Janine? How can I make this sound like something I am proud to talk about, right? What do I do for my sellers that I feel like is unique to me, right? And like I said, don't make the same mistake I did. Do not go verbatim with what it says because this presentation was not written by you. It was maybe written for you, but it really wasn't written for you. It was written for the brokerage, okay? To get uniform results across all their agent counts to make sure everybody sounds like they work for the brokerage, which, you know, at the end of the day, people hire us to get a job done. So make sure you make it yours. Your confidence level will close more deals. All right, let's talk a little bit about hyper-local elements. Pictures. If you have pictures of houses in your area, build them in, right? Listing descriptions. How are your listing descriptions? Are they different from what's out there? Are you highlighting local aspects? Make a mention of that. Postcards, anything that goes out that puts you in direct connection of like, oh yeah, you're actually the one sending all of these cards? I'm like, yeah, I'm always seeing them. You'd be surprised how many people don't remember. Announcements, awards, anything that is, you know, worthwhile mentioning. So we saw already a pricing strategy advisor designation, right? Anything worth mentioning that you think will come in handy during the presentation, make sure you have it. And please do not put it in a way that is your entire name and then all these little abbreviations behind it and nobody knows what it means. It's like, well, but I showed them like all my 500, you know, abbreviations. They don't know what that means. I am a certified pricing strategist so that, right? So that, that's a big one, so that my clients know they are getting the deepest and best analysis of their property value that an agent can currently provide them. Oh, meaning you actually know more about pricing than another agent? Yes, I do. Confidence, right? Stagers. Anybody here holds a staging certification, right? Make sure that it is relevant to their transaction. Not like, oh yeah, I'm that. Well, so what, right? So that I can help you prepare your home for the market better. So that's a big one. Go through your presentation. And when you go through, oh, we do pictures, right? So that a potential buyer can see the angles of the home. We do floor plans so that a potential buyer can envision their furniture in there, right? We do drone pictures so that we not only talk about the house, but the neighborhood, okay? Go through your presentation and find these so that statements. Another hyperlocal element, especially as you're building credibility. Well, it doesn't hurt, right? Well, here's a list of our sold properties in the subdivision. Credibility, social proof. Yes, that's a good one. Another one, again, if you just send something out, right, a postcard of some sort, build that connection. Now, once we're done with the marketing component, I want you to ask to be hired. Why? Because who's responsible for the price? It's not you. We already cleared that, right? It's the seller. So based on everything I told you about the exposure, are you ready to hire me? Ask them. You'd be surprised how many times I've actually gotten a yes, making the second part a whole lot easier and fun. Okay? So it's all about the option, right? At least I think it is all about the option. I have one currently that I'm looking at, and the agent said, well, we got to go on this open market to find out if our pricing is accurate. Well, maybe. Or maybe your client does not want to be put through having tons of people trample through their house in the middle of flu season, making sure her life is inconvenienced if I can get the correct offer on the table right now, right? Oh, there's a good one. Most agents just don't ask for the job. I had a seller interview 3 other realtors, and they hired me because I was the only one that asked to be hired. Crazy. I know, right? Ask. And I always make a fun one out of it. I'm like, hey, it's okay. Moving on, right? So let's talk about pricing. What is your pricing job when you're in there, right? Your pricing job is to present the options, because options are what are needed. And it is not your job to price the property. I mean, not entirely, at least, right? Your job is to present the options and the outcomes. So, want to price it above market value. What do you think happens, right? Talk about higher market time, talk about perceived value of what's wrong with it if it lasts longer than a weekend, right? Price it at market value. Well, we used to do all of this, right? And then people would normally leave a little bit of room, negotiate a little bit down. Everybody felt like they won. Then COVID hit, we had a market price, and instead of going down, we were going up. Okay, that was weird, but that happened. Pricing it below market value, that's obviously our foreclosures. We had a foreclosure comment in there, right? Okay. Options. And then surprise and delight. Close the deal with a gift. Now, what's a gift? A gift can be a lot of things. I think a gift in many words is really what is your unique value proposition? What makes you unique, and what is there for the seller waiting that you know likely no other agent has offered them, okay? And that is up to you to decide. A unique value proposition, we walked through it actually in the boot camp. We just had a slide up for that one on the recent boot camp. But again, make it unique and then ask again. Are you ready to hire me now? Right? Yes. Ask again. I'm serious. Now, there's a couple more things I want to do before we wrap up. We're almost there. First up, I think I already hinted on that. power of your own presentation. When you put the work in, and so many agents don't want to put the work in, they, especially right now, right? I see so many people selling their listing presentations, and they're like, oh, you just have to put your name in there and drop a couple pretty pictures. This is not your presentation, okay? It's a good start, but it's as good a start as any, right? It might be a good start. You still have to put your own voice and your own spin on it. The next part, practice, 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 right? Grab an agent friend, sit down and practice. And I do think bringing physical items to show, I do not think listing appointments should be done on iPads because, you know, they are not tangible. I like when people have tangible stuff and they get to see it and feel it and it makes it real for them, okay? It's like a little psychological trigger on that end. But then here I told you, I'm going to give you one more thing, one that we've currently started implementing, and I find this one so, so interesting. And I can't take credit for it. So it's The Full Fee Agent, I believe it came from. The Full Fee Agent. It's a book. Again, if you want to pick somebody's brain, pick up a book. And one of the things that I started taking, that golden nugget, right, that we're all looking for, is a simple question. Before I start, okay, I got to ask, out of all the agents, why did you call me? That question has proven to be extremely powerful for me to know about. I have sat across from sellers and I asked this question and they said, we didn't pick you, our deceased mother did. True story. True story. It turns out that we had a home evaluation request for that property, and I dropped off my box. I'll show you that one in a second. And they said it was just the day that her cancer diagnosis came that this box appeared on our doorstep. And we are big believers in, if it's meant to be, it's faith. And this is why you're sitting here. We've interviewed somebody else as well, but you're sitting here because of all of this. Now, it gives you a lot of intel, first and foremost, on the type of people that you're dealing with, right? Very family focused. It also was a nice, interesting thing because I give you the flip story of, out of all the agents, why did you call me? Well, we had somebody in that we've known for a long time, but one of our friends suggested that we get a second opinion. I wasn't there for the listing. I was the checkup call, the one to make sure that the friend agent, right, knew right there. Yes, I tried to win them over, but you get a pretty good feeling about why are you there. So build in that question, go read that book, because it's honestly very, very eye-opening. All right, now, a couple more closing thoughts, and I think we're actually staying on time today. At the end of the day, whatever I just walked through with you does not matter if you can't get a seller lead. If you can't get a seller lead, you can't get a listing appointment. If you can't get a listing appointment, whatever I just went over will not matter. Hence, it's time for you to get seller leads, right? That is our next mailer bootcamp. We just kicked off today. Yes, I'm going to invite you to the, because when we get to the listing appointment, this is here what we are dropping off. And before you worry about, okay, cool, what do I do here? How do I do that? I need you to pump the brakes because we need to figure out the leads first. We need more seller leads. We need more hyperlocal leads, right? And because of that, that is why I think the next bootcamp is really the next best step for anybody who just walked through this entire journey. Seller leads, because seller leads, and then converting them into listing appointments. And for those of you too who are like, okay, this was awesome. I have a lot of very, like good ideas of what to do. I still have questions. I'm going to do something new. I decided to offer agents the opportunity to book a call. Yes, me directly. You can bring your questions on geographic farming, any of these things that we just discussed. So for those of you that know me from the bootcamp, ask your bootcamp questions, ask your hyperlocal agent questions, ask your farming questions, and then again, we'll see how long I'm going to keep this one up. But that is really what I think can help with conversation. So for those of you that sticked all the way through the end, thank you. How was today's class? You can text the word review to 844-950-3580. I always love to get a good review. I'm not gonna lie, who doesn't? But then it's also decision time, right? And the decision time is pretty simple. If you want to dive deeper into how do I go about getting leads, this is for me personally, it's either the book, right? Or the bootcamp. Either one of them, and you can then figure out what's right. If you're like, okay, this was a lot, I'm slightly overwhelmed, but I want to learn more, I think I just want to do another class. Lunch and Learns every Monday, they are free to attend. If you want to put your learning on hyperspeed, that's the ClassPass. And you find a whole lot of other ones, such as the personality one I discussed, right? That's the ClassPass. Remember, it is not a membership. It's 30 days from the day you activate the pass, okay? Which happens with purchase. So when you purchase, it's activated. All right, so your turn. Pick your pass after class. And for those of you that have not reviewed the Hyperlocal Agent or just had so much fun, they want to review class again. That is the word review. Let me blend it in. There you go. That's the number. And other than that, thanks so much for joining. Another Lunch and Learn in the books. And I think it was a good one. So awesome. If you got any questions, drop them in the comments. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Bye, everyone.